They said he was already gone, brain dead, a vegetable in an expensive suit. Her family sold her to him for $8 million, thought they were getting rid of her forever. She stood there in that conservatory, holding his cold hand, wearing a borrowed wedding dress, about to marry a man who couldn't even recognize his own son. The minister asked her if she took this man to be her husband. She said, "I do." Then the minister turned to Harrison Whitmore, 87 years old, dying from advanced dementia. And that's when everything she thought she knew shattered into pieces. His eyes snapped into focus, sharp, aware, locked onto hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. His hand, limp seconds ago, gripped hers with shocking strength. The heart monitor started beeping faster. His son Charles jumped to his feet shouting, "Dad!" And then Harrison leaned close and whispered 3 words that changed everything. "Play along. They're watching." His eyes fluttered closed. His hand went limp. He returned to that vacant expression like nothing had happened. But she heard him. She felt his grip, which meant one impossible thing. He'd been faking it. How did she end up here? Marrying a man 3 times her age who was pretending to have dementia while his entire family believed he was dying? Let's take you back 4 months to where this nightmare started. Because this story, it's about betrayal, survival, and what happens when you push the wrong person too far. If you've ever been dismissed, ever been told you didn't belong, this story is for you. Hit that subscribe button right now, because what I'm about to tell you will make you question everything you think you know about family, loyalty, and revenge. 4 months ago, Amara Johnson was nobody. Just another foster kid from the Bronx who'd spent 24 years bouncing between homes, never really belonging anywhere. Some placements were tolerable, some were nightmares she tried not to remember. All of them were temporary. Then a social worker called with news that seemed impossible. DNA test results proved she wasn't an orphan. She was the daughter of Marcus and Diana Johnson, wealthy real estate developers in Connecticut who'd lost her 24 years ago in a hospital mix-up. She'd been declared deceased as an infant, but she'd actually been alive, lost in the system this whole time. Amara drove to Greenwich that day with her heart pounding, imagining the reunion. Tears, embraces, finally having a family that was actually hers. She walked up that circular driveway to their mansion. Brick facade, perfectly trimmed hedges, a 4-car garage displaying vehicles worth more than most people's annual salaries. This was it, her real family, her chance at belonging. The front door opened before she could knock. A young woman around her age stood there. Stunning, with flawless dark skin, designer everything, and a smile that held absolutely no warmth whatsoever. "You must be Amara," she said. "I'm Nia, your sister." The way she said sister felt like a slap across the face. Inside, her biological parents waited, Marcus and Diana Johnson. Her brother Jamal stood near the window scrolling through his phone, barely glancing up. They all looked at her the same way, like she was a complication they had to manage, not their long-lost daughter, not someone they'd mourned for 24 years, just an inconvenience that DNA had forced into their lives. Marcus said her name stiffly. No embrace, no tears, just Amara, spoken like a business meeting opener. Diana pressed a tissue to her eyes, but Amara noticed the tissue stayed completely dry. "It's just so overwhelming," Diana said. "Having you back after all these years, we thought we'd lost you forever." "But you didn't," Amara said. "I was alive, in the system, all this time." Uncomfortable silence settled over the room like fog. Her brother Jamal glanced at his Apple Watch. "Well, you're here now," he said. "That's what matters, right?" Nia laughed, a sharp, cold sound that made Amara's skin crawl. "Sure," Nia said. "That's what matters." Amara felt rage bubbling in her chest, that protective anger that had kept her alive through 24 years of instability, of being unwanted, of surviving when everything said she shouldn't. But she swallowed it down. These were her parents, her real family. They just needed time to adjust. She had no idea how devastatingly wrong she was. The first 10 days were brutal. They gave Amara a room, the smallest bedroom in their 9-bedroom mansion, tucked in the back corner near the utility room. Paper-thin walls. She could hear the HVAC system groaning at all hours. Meanwhile, Nia's suite was practically its own apartment. Private balcony, walk-in closet the size of Amara's entire room, bathroom with a soaking tub and rainfall shower. "I've been here for 20 years, Nia said when she caught Amara staring. "I'm the daughter they actually raised." "You're just a DNA match. DNA matters, doesn't it?" Amara shot back. Nia tilted her head, studying her like she was an insect she'd found in her designer handbag. "You think so? Because from where I'm standing, DNA doesn't mean much when you don't know how to act in polite society. When you can't tell Prada from Gucci. When you sound like you grew up in the projects instead of in Greenwich." "I did grow up in the projects," Amara said, her voice hard as steel. "That's what foster care is. I survived things you couldn't imagine." "What have you survived, Nia?" "A delayed Uber." Nia's smile vanished instantly. "Careful, Amara," she said. "You're a guest in this house. Guests can be asked to leave." "I'm not a guest," Amara said. "I'm family." Nia laughed again, that cold, cruel sound. "We'll see about that," she said. That night, Amara lay in her tiny room staring at cracks in the ceiling, listening to the HVAC rattle through the walls. She wanted to scream, to fight, to tell them exactly what she thought of their fake family and their conditional acceptance. But she had nowhere else to go. No money. No backup plan. So she stayed quiet. For now. The real nightmare started 3 weeks later at Sunday brunch. Nia set down her mimosa and looked directly at Amara with calculating eyes. "I have a proposal for you, Amara," she said. "What kind of proposal?" Amara asked. "A wager," Nia said. She pulled out a folded document from her Saint Laurent bag and slid it across the table. Amara unfolded the paper. It was a contract, professionally drafted, legally binding, with both their names at the bottom. "I wager that I can take everything from you," Nia said calmly, like she was discussing the weather. "Your room, your belongings, even the people you trust. If I succeed 9 times consecutively, you leave this house forever and never return." "Are you insane?" Amara asked. Nia took a sip of her mimosa. "Completely serious," she said. "But if you win even once, if you manage to keep something I want, then I'll leave instead. I'll walk away from this family, relinquish any inheritance rights, and you'll have them all to yourself." Amara looked at Marcus and Diana, her so-called parents. "You're listening to this, right?" she said. "Your daughter wants to make a wager about whether I can stay in this family." Marcus cleared his throat. "Amara, perhaps it would be beneficial to settle things. Establish clear boundaries." "Boundaries?" Amara said. "This isn't about boundaries. She wants to play games with my life." "If you're so certain you belong here," Nia said smoothly, "then you should have no problem winning. Unless," she paused for effect, "unless you know deep down that you don't belong here, that you're just a foster kid playing dress-up." Every instinct in Amara's body screamed at her to walk away. This was manipulation. This was a trap. But the thought of Nia leaving, of finally having a real family without this poison in it. "Fine," Amara said, grabbing a pen. "I'll sign your contract." Nia's smile was pure victory. "Excellent," she said. "Let the wager begin." Amara signed her name, sealing her fate for the next 4 months of absolute hell. The first 3 rounds happened quickly. Round 1. Nia decided she wanted Amara's room for her yoga studio. She claimed the quiet location was perfect for meditation. Marcus sided with Nia immediately. "It's important for Nia's wellness routine, Amara," he said. "I'm sure you understand." Amara moved to an even smaller room in the basement. No windows, just concrete walls and the smell of dampness. She wanted to scream, to fight, but the contract said she had to comply with each challenge or forfeit everything. So she moved. Round 2. Amara had rescued a stray dog from outside the mansion. a sweet pit bull mix she named Lucky. The dog had followed her home one rainy evening, and for the first time since arriving in Connecticut, she felt like she had something that was truly hers, something that loved her without conditions. Then Nia suddenly developed a severe dog allergy. Diana made Amara surrender Lucky to a shelter. "We can't have animals compromising Nia's health, sweetheart," Diana said. "Surely you understand." Amara held Lucky at that shelter, tears streaming down her face as she said goodbye to the one living being that had shown her unconditional love. "I'm so sorry," she whispered into his fur. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart." Round 3. Amara had been accepted to Yale University with a full academic scholarship. She'd worked herself to exhaustion, maintained a perfect GPA at community college while working 2 jobs. She'd earned that scholarship through sheer determination and blood, sweat, and tears. But Nia suddenly decided she wanted to attend Yale, too. Marcus made some calls, applied some pressure, made some very generous donations. 3 weeks later, Nia had Amara's scholarship. Amara ended up at Southern Connecticut State University instead. Her dreams of an Ivy League education crushed like broken glass under Nia's designer heels. "You're better suited for state school anyway," Diana said, not even looking up from her tablet. "It's more appropriate for your background." Amara's hands shook with rage, but she didn't explode. Not yet. By round 8, Amara had lost everything that mattered: her room, her dog, her education, her dignity. The family didn't even pretend to care about her anymore. They stopped including her in family plans, stopped asking about her life, stopped acknowledging she existed unless Nia needed her for another round of humiliation. But round 9. That was the most devastating one yet. Amara met Terrence Williams at the Southern Connecticut State University Library on a cold Tuesday in October. He was tall, dark-skinned, with kind brown eyes, an easy smile, and a gentleness that made Amara's guarded heart open just a crack. He said he was also a scholarship student, working 2 jobs to afford school while supporting his family back in Atlanta. They connected over late-night study sessions, shared dreams of building something despite their circumstances, and the exhausting reality of being underestimated everywhere they went. Terrence seemed to understand her in ways no one else did. He listened when she talked. He remembered details about her life. He made her feel seen. For the first time since coming to Connecticut, Amara felt valued, wanted, like she mattered to someone. After 2 months of friendship and slowly developing feelings, Terrence asked her to be his girlfriend at a small coffee shop near campus. "Amara," he said, "you're the most incredible person I've ever met. Would you be my girlfriend?" She said yes, her heart full for the first time in what felt like years. She thought she'd finally won something. She thought she'd found someone who chose her. She was devastatingly wrong. If you're already feeling angry for Amara, drop a comment saying, "Justice." Let me know you're ready to see her rise. And subscribe because what happens next will break your heart before it gets better. One evening in early December, Nia called an emergency family meeting. Amara walked into the sitting room and froze. Terrence sat on the expensive leather sofa next to Nia, looking uncomfortable but not leaving. His arm rested along the back of the couch near Nia's shoulders. "What's happening?" Amara asked slowly, dread settling in her stomach like a stone. Nia smiled, that predatory smile that made Amara's blood run cold. "Amara," she said, "I'd like to formally introduce you to my boyfriend, Terrence." The world tilted. "What?" Amara whispered. Terrence finally met her eyes. He looked guilty, but not guilty enough. "Amara, I'm sorry," he said. "I should have been honest sooner, but Nia and I have been together for a while now." "How long?" Amara's voice came out strangled. "Since before I met you," Terrence admitted quietly. The room spun. Amara grabbed the back of a chair to steady herself. "You," she said. "You were with her this entire time?" "Terrence and I had a minor disagreement," Nia said, examining her manicure casually. "I suggested he explore other options, see what else was available. Turns out nothing else compared to what we have. Right, baby?" Terrence shifted uncomfortably. "Nia, you said?" he started. "What?" Nia's voice turned sharp. "Be gentle? Why? She needs to hear the truth." Amara looked at Terrence, the man she'd trusted, maybe even started to love. "Tell me she's lying," she said. Terrence looked away. "I'm sorry, Amara," he said. "My family, we're in financial crisis. Nia offered to help if I helped her with the wager." The final piece clicked into place. "Oh my God," Amara breathed. "This was all part of it. The library meetings, the study sessions, you telling me you understood me. It was all fabricated. All of it." "Not all of it," Terrence said weakly. "I genuinely enjoyed our time together." "Get out!" Amara screamed, her rage finally erupting like a volcano. "Get out of my sight before I do something we'll all regret." "Amara, please," Diana started. "And you!" Amara whirled on her mother. "You sat here and watched this happen. You knew. You all knew." Jamal looked up from his phone, smirking. "That's 8 losses, Amara," he said. "Just one more and you're gone from our lives for good." Nia stood up gracefully, smoothing her designer dress. "Amara," she said, "don't you want to know what the 9th wager is?" "I don't care what it is," Amara said. "Oh, I think you will," Nia said. Nia walked closer, her heels clicking on the marble floor. "The 9th wager is simple," she said. "Terrence chooses. Right here, right now. If he chooses you, I leave this family forever, just like the contract says. But if he chooses me," she paused, her smile widening, "you marry Harrison Whitmore." Amara's blood turned to ice. "Who is Harrison Whitmore?" she asked. Marcus cleared his throat. "He's a billionaire real estate developer," he said. "Built his fortune constructing affordable housing and hospital networks across New York. He was critically injured in a car accident 18 months ago. He's been suffering from advanced dementia ever since. He's in a private care facility at his estate in the Hamptons." "Why would I?" Amara started. "His family is seeking someone to marry him," Diana explained, her voice detached, clinical. "For companionship. They believe having a wife might bring him comfort in his final months. But when he passes," she trailed off meaningfully. "Then I'd be a 24-year-old widow," Amara finished, her voice hollow. "You want me to marry a man with dementia? A dying elderly man?" "The Whitmore family is extraordinarily influential in New York," Marcus said. "Extraordinarily wealthy. They've been approaching prominent families with eligible daughters for weeks. When we mentioned we had you—" "Offered me?" Amara interrupted, her voice dropping to something dangerous. "You offered me up like a commodity." "We suggested Nia first," Diana said quickly. "But we couldn't bear the thought of her sacrificing her youth for a man who might not even recognize her. So we proposed you as an alternative." The betrayal hit Amara like a physical blow. They didn't just not love her, they saw her as disposable, as something to be traded and discarded like yesterday's garbage. "Amara," Nia said sweetly, "all you have to do is win this final round. Get Terrence to choose you over me, and you'll never have to see me again. Isn't that what you want?" Amara looked at Terrence. He stood up slowly, and for one brief, foolish moment, she thought she saw genuine regret in his eyes. Then he walked over to Nia and took her hand. "I choose Nia," Terrence said. "I'm sorry, Amara, but my family desperately needs the financial support Nia's offering. It's nothing personal." The room erupted. Jamal laughed, cruel and mocking. Nia's smile was triumphant. Even Diana looked relieved. "That's 9, Nia announced victoriously. "You lost, Amara. Time to marry that old man with dementia and get out of our lives forever." But Amara didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stood there, something fundamental shifting inside her. The scared foster kid who'd been desperate for love died in that moment. And someone new was born. Someone who'd had enough. Someone who was done being their victim. "Fine," Amara said quietly. Everyone stopped celebrating. "What?" Nia looked confused. "I said fine," Amara repeated. "I'll marry Harrison Whitmore." She turned to Marcus, her voice calm but lethal. "But I want something in exchange." You're hardly in a position to negotiate, Marcus said. Aren't I? Amara asked. She smiled, cold and sharp. The Whitmore family is desperate, right? You said they've been approaching prominent families for weeks. Nobody wants to marry an elderly man with dementia. Nobody wants to risk being trapped as a young widow. But I'll do it, if you give me Grandma Johnson's properties. Marcus's face turned purple. Those properties are worth millions, he shouted. 2 historic buildings in downtown Greenwich, Amara said, valued at $8 million. I did my homework, and they're just sitting vacant while you and Diana argue over who inherits them when Grandma passes. So here's my offer. Transfer them to me now, and I'll marry Harrison Whitmore. I'll be the gracious daughter-in-law the Whitmore family needs. I'll play my part flawlessly. This is absurd. Nia jumped up. Dad, you promised me those properties. I promised to consider it, Marcus said slowly, looking at Amara with new eyes, seeing her clearly for the first time. You can't seriously be considering this. Nia's voice rose to a shriek, but Marcus was considering it. Amara could see the calculations happening behind his eyes. The Whitmore family was powerful. Charles Whitmore had connections to the governor, to New York's elite, to people who could make or break Marcus's business empire. Refusing them had consequences. But so did giving Amara $8 million in property. The Whitmore family needs this marriage to happen soon, Amara pressed. Harrison's son is watching his father fade, not recognizing anyone, not responding to anything. You told me yourselves. They're pushing hard for this arrangement. She crossed her arms. So either I get those properties or I walk away right now, and you can explain to Charles Whitmore why you couldn't deliver a bride. The room went silent. This wasn't the scared foster girl they'd been manipulating for 4 months. This was someone who'd learned to play their game and play it better. Marcus and Diana exchanged a long look. Some silent conversation passed between them. Finally, Marcus nodded slowly. Agreed, he said. But those properties are currently set to transfer to Nia upon your grandmother's death. We'll need to revise the paperwork. I want it completed before the wedding, Amara said. Legally binding, notarized, no loopholes, no reversals. Agreed, Marcus said. And one more condition, Amara added. Diana sighed heavily. What now? She asked. The marriage stays confidential until after it's finalized, Amara said. Nia and Terrence don't get to know when or where the ceremony happens. This is between me, you, and the Whitmore family. Nia frowned. Why would you? She started. Not your concern, Amara cut her off with ice in her voice. Do we have an agreement or not? Marcus extended his hand across the table. Agreement, he said. Amara shook it, her grip firm and steady. As she walked out of the room, she heard Terrence call after her. Amara, wait, he said. She didn't even slow down. She was done being their victim. If they wanted to force her into a marriage with a dying elderly man, fine. She'd do it. But she'd do it on her terms, with her conditions, and she'd make absolutely sure she came out on top. What she didn't know was that this marriage would transform everything in ways none of them could possibly imagine. That night, Amara lay in her basement room, staring at water stains on the ceiling, her mind racing. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She opened the text. Miss Johnson, this is Charles Whitmore, Harrison Whitmore's son. Thank you for agreeing to this arrangement. I know the circumstances are unconventional. My father was an extraordinary man, a true visionary. He built housing for over 10,000 families before the accident. The dementia has been devastating for our family. The doctors say his prognosis isn't promising, but we believe in hope. Your presence might bring him peace in his final months. We'll handle all wedding expenses and arrangements. The ceremony is scheduled for 10 days from today. Amara stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back. Can I ask you something? Of course, Charles replied. What was he like before the accident? She asked. There was a pause. Then the response came. Brilliant, compassionate. He never abandoned anything or anyone. Harrison fought for people who couldn't fight for themselves. It's why he built so many charity hospitals and affordable housing complexes. He had the biggest heart of anyone I've ever known. I think in another life, you two would have understood each other deeply. Amara read those words over and over again. A billionaire who fought for people who couldn't fight for themselves, who never abandoned anyone. The complete opposite of the family she'd just escaped. 10 days later, she stood in that conservatory wearing a borrowed wedding dress, about to marry a stranger. And that's when Harrison Whitmore opened his eyes and whispered, "Play along. They're watching." Amara looked around that room after the ceremony, her heart pounding. She found 3 cameras hidden in decorative plants. Someone was watching them. But who? And why would a man with dementia warn her about surveillance? Charles came to check on her after the ceremony. "Are you all right, Amara?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "Just overwhelmed. Your father." He seemed to respond during the ceremony. Charles studied her carefully. "My father has advanced dementia," he said. "What you saw was likely a muscle spasm, nothing more." But his eyes were watching her too carefully. He was testing her, seeing what she'd say. "The legal paperwork is finalized," Charles said, handing her a black credit card. "You're officially Mrs. Whitmore now. All the benefits we discussed are active immediately. No spending limit. Everything you need. My father wanted to ensure his wife was cared for." After Charles left, Amara's phone rang. "Marcus, it's done," he said. "The properties are transferred to your name. You got what you wanted." "Good," Amara said. "Remember our deal," Marcus continued. "You stay married until he dies. You maintain appearances, no scandals." "I'll play my part perfectly," Amara said. "See that you do," Marcus said. "And Amara, don't come back. You're not part of this family anymore." He hung up. Fine by her, Amara thought. She was done being their victim. But she had no idea she'd just walked into something so much bigger. That first night at the Whitmore estate, Amara was moved into the master suite. It connected to Harrison's medical room through a glass partition. She could see him through it, hooked to monitors, nurses attending to him around the clock. The staff was kind, but professional. "Mr. Whitmore requires 24-hour care," they said. "We're here if you need anything." Amara stood there alone, staring at this stranger who was now her husband. An 87-year-old man with dementia who'd somehow been aware enough during their wedding to warn her. "Play along. They're watching." Late that night, Amara woke to the sound of movement. She looked through the glass partition, and her breath stopped. Harrison was sitting up in bed, fully alert, reading a book. Not staring blankly, not drooling, reading, with perfect comprehension. She rushed to the connecting door. It was locked from her side. By the time she got staff to open it, Harrison was lying down again, appearing completely unconscious. The book was gone. "He hasn't moved all night, Mrs. Whitmore," the nurse said. "But I saw him," Amara insisted. "You must have been dreaming," the nurse said gently. "It's been an overwhelming day." The next morning, Amara waited until the nurses changed shifts. Then she searched Harrison's room. She found the book hidden under his mattress, The Art of War by Sun Tzu. The bookmark was on a chapter titled, "All Warfare is Based on Deception." Amara confronted Charles. "Your father isn't what you think," she said. "My father has advanced dementia," Charles said defensively. "Doctors have confirmed." "Then why are there cameras in every room watching us?" Amara asked. Charles went very still. "For his safety," he said. "Medical monitoring." "Those aren't medical cameras," Amara said. Charles stared at her for a long moment. Then he made a decision. 6 months ago, strange things started happening, he admitted. Money moving between accounts, legal documents being altered, security footage disappearing. All traced back to my father's computer. But he couldn't be operating it. Could he? "You think he's faking?" Amara asked. "I think someone is using his condition to steal from him," Charles said. "I think there's a conspiracy, and I needed someone on the inside I could trust. Someone with no connection to our family. Someone who had nothing to gain by lying to me." "That's why you wanted this marriage," Amara said slowly. not for Harrison's comfort. To have an investigator inside the house. Charles nodded. "Will you help me?" he asked. Over the next 3 days, Charles and Amara reviewed financial records. $45 million had been moved in the past 6 months. All transactions authorized with Harrison's biometric signatures. "But he can't sign anything," Amara said. "He can barely hold a pen." They checked security footage from bank visits. There was Harrison being wheeled in, appearing completely vacant. But his hand signed documents perfectly. No tremor, no hesitation. "He's signing them himself," Amara said. "He's lucid during those moments." "Then where's the money going?" Charles asked. That night, Amara pretended to sleep. She watched through the partition as someone entered Harrison's room. It was Dr. Michelle Peterson, his primary care physician. She disconnected his medications. She spoke to him normally. And Harrison responded. Fully coherent, sitting up, discussing stock portfolios like a CEO in a boardroom. "The timeline is accelerating," Dr. Peterson said. "They're getting suspicious." "Then we move to phase 2, Harrison said, his voice strong and clear. "The girl. Can we trust her?" "She's just a foster kid your son hired," Dr. Peterson replied. "She'll do what she's told for money." Amara's blood ran cold. They were talking about her. She grabbed her phone and started recording. For the next 20 minutes, she captured everything. Harrison discussing financial transfers. Dr. Peterson talking about falsified medical records, plans to liquidate assets before what? Before the family could stop him. When Dr. Peterson left, Amara waited. Then she walked into Harrison's room. He was lying down again, eyes closed, playing the dementia patient perfectly. "I know you're awake," Amara said quietly. Harrison's eyes opened, sharp, intelligent, completely aware. He sat up slowly, studying her. "How long have you known?" he asked. "Since the wedding," Amara said, "when you told me to play along." His expression didn't change. "Are you going to tell Charles?" he asked. "That depends," Amara said. "On what?" "On what you're really doing," she said, "and why you're faking dementia to do it." Harrison smiled. It was the smile of a man who'd been waiting for someone to figure it out. "Sit down, Mrs. Whitmore," he said. "Let me tell you a story about my family, about greed, about betrayal, and about why I had to die in order to save everything I built." Amara sat down, her heart pounding. For the next hour, Harrison told her everything. 18 months ago, he'd discovered his own family was embezzling from his charitable foundations, his brother Robert, his nephew David, even his business partner of 30 years. They'd been siphoning money meant for affordable housing, for hospitals, for families who desperately needed help. When Harrison confronted them, they tried to have him declared mentally incompetent. They bribed doctors, falsified medical records. The car accident was convenient timing. It gave them the perfect cover story. Harrison Whitmore, the great philanthropist, reduced to a vegetable who couldn't stop them from stealing everything he'd built. "But I wasn't as injured as they thought," Harrison said. "I was aware enough to understand what they were planning. So I made a choice. I would let them think they'd won. I would fake the dementia. And while they thought I was helpless, I would move every single asset out of their reach." "That's where Dr. Peterson comes in," Amara said. "She's the only doctor I could trust," Harrison said. "She's been helping me maintain the charade while I liquidate everything. The money they think they're stealing, it's going exactly where I always intended it to go, to the families who need it, to the hospitals, to the housing projects." "But your son," Amara said. "Charles, he thinks you're dying." "Charles is a good man," Harrison said. And for the first time, Amara heard emotion in his voice. "But he's also naive. He trusts people too easily. If he knew I was faking, he'd try to fix things, try to reconcile with his uncle, with his cousin. He'd give them chances they don't deserve. I can't risk that, not when so many people depend on these foundations." "So you're letting him think you're dying," Amara said, "so you can protect your legacy." Harrison nodded. "And you're going to help me," he said. "Why would I do that?" Amara asked. "Because," Harrison said, leaning forward, You understand what it's like to be betrayed by family. You understand what it's like to be underestimated. And you understand that sometimes the only way to win is to let them think they've already won. He was right. Amara did understand. What do you need me to do? She asked. Keep playing the devoted wife, Harrison said. Keep Charles believing I'm genuinely deteriorating. And when the time comes when I've moved the last of the assets, you'll help me expose them all. What's in it for me? Amara asked. Besides the $8 million in property you already negotiated? Harrison smiled. When this is over, when my family's crimes are exposed and my foundations are secure, I'm going to name you as the primary trustee. You'll control where every dollar goes. You'll have the power to help thousands of families just like the one you never had. Amara stared at him. This dying old man with dementia who wasn't dying and didn't have dementia. This billionaire who was orchestrating the most elaborate deception she'd ever seen. You're offering me control of your entire charitable empire, she said. I'm offering you purpose, Harrison said. A chance to take everything you've survived and use it to help others survive too. Isn't that better than revenge? 2 weeks passed. Amara played her part perfectly, the devoted young wife caring for her dying husband. She held Harrison's hand during doctor visits while he drooled and stared blankly. She spoke to him gently even though he never responded. She updated Charles on his father's condition with genuine concern in her voice. And every night, after the staff left, Harrison and Amara would meet in his study to plan. They reviewed financial statements, identified every account his family had been stealing from, tracked every dollar. Harrison had been methodical. For 18 months, he'd been slowly, carefully moving money, setting up new foundations with different names, establishing trusts that his family couldn't touch. It was brilliant, it was ruthless, and it was working. Then one night, everything changed. Charles burst into the study where Harrison and Amara were working. Amara had forgotten to lock the door. Charles stood there, staring at his father, sitting up, alert, working on a laptop, completely aware. Dad? Charles whispered. Harrison met his son's eyes. The game was over. Hello, son, Harrison said quietly. Charles stammered. You're awake. You're aware. I've been aware for 18 months, Harrison said. The dementia was never real. Amara watched Charles's face cycle through emotions. Shock, confusion, relief, then anger. You let me think you were dying, Charles said, his voice breaking. You let me grieve for you while you were alive and completely fine. I had to, Harrison said. Why? Charles demanded. Because your uncle is stealing from us, Harrison said. Because your cousin has embezzled $45 million from the charitable foundations. Because your business partner has been falsifying documents to liquidate assets. And because I knew if I told you, you'd try to fix it instead of letting me handle it. Charles sank into a chair. Uncle Robert, he said. David? They're family. They're criminals, Harrison said flatly. And I've spent 18 months gathering evidence to prove it. That's when Charles looked at Amara. You knew, he said. I just found out 2 weeks ago, Amara admitted. Charles laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. So my wife and my father have been lying to me, running an investigation behind my back, treating me like I'm too stupid to handle the truth. You're not stupid, Harrison said gently. You're compassionate. You believe in people. Those are good qualities, Charles. But in this situation, they're liabilities. We needed someone they wouldn't suspect, Amara added. Someone new to the family. Someone they'd dismiss as just a gold digger who married your dying father for money. And you played that role perfectly, didn't you? Charles said to Amara. His voice wasn't angry. It was hurt. I'm sorry, Amara said. But your father is right. If you'd known, you would have tried to reconcile. You would have given them chances they don't deserve, just like I gave my family chances they didn't deserve. Charles looked at Amara for a long moment, then at his father. What happens now? He asked. Now, Harrison said, we finish this. Tomorrow night there's a board meeting for the Whitmore Foundation. Robert, David, and Gregory will all be there. They think I'm too far gone to attend. They think they've finally won. But I'm going to walk into that boardroom, fully coherent, with 18 months of evidence documenting every dollar they've stolen, and I'm going to watch their faces when they realize they've lost everything." Charles was quiet for a long time. Then he nodded slowly. "I want to be there," he said. "You will be," Harrison said. "All three of us will." The next day felt like the longest of Amara's life. Harrison stayed in character, playing the dementia patient perfectly. Dr. Peterson came for his daily checkup, and Amara watched her perform the same routine she'd been doing for months, checking vitals, adjusting medications, all while knowing it was all theater. That evening, they prepared. Harrison dressed in a tailored suit. The first time Amara had seen him in anything other than hospital clothes. He looked different, powerful, like the billionaire philanthropist he'd always been. Charles was nervous. Amara could see it in the way he kept adjusting his tie, checking his watch. "You don't have to do this," Amara told him. "Yes, I do," Charles said. "They're my family. I need to see it for myself." They arrived at the Whitmore Foundation headquarters at 7 p.m. The building was stunning, glass and steel, with the Whitmore name etched above the entrance. Inside, they took the private elevator to the 20th floor boardroom. "I want you to wait outside," Harrison said to Amara. "When I give the signal, bring in the documents." "What's the signal?" Amara asked. "You'll know," he said. Charles and Harrison walked into the boardroom. Amara stood outside, holding a briefcase full of financial records, her heart pounding. Through the glass walls, she could see them. Robert Whitmore, Harrison's brother. Tall, silver-haired, expensive suit. David Whitmore, his nephew. Younger, arrogant-looking. And Gregory Chen, the business partner. They were laughing about something, drinks in hand, completely relaxed. Then Harrison walked in. The laughter stopped instantly. Robert dropped his glass. It shattered on the marble floor. "Harrison?" Robert whispered. "Hello, brother," Harrison said, his voice strong and clear. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "You're," David stammered. "You're speaking. You're aware." "I've always been aware," Harrison said calmly. "Every single day for the past 18 months while you've been stealing from my foundations, I've been watching, I've been documenting, and I've been waiting for this moment." Robert recovered first. "This is absurd," he said. "Harrison, you have dementia. You don't know what you're saying. We need to get you back to your doctors." "Do I?" Harrison pulled out a remote, clicked a button. A screen descended from the ceiling. Financial statements appeared. Transaction records, bank transfers, every single theft documented in excruciating detail. $45 million, Harrison said. "That's how much you've stolen. Money meant for hospitals, for affordable housing, for families who desperately needed help. You took it and funneled it into your personal accounts." The room was silent. "This is a misunderstanding," Gregory said quickly. "We were simply reorganizing the foundation's assets." "Reorganizing?" Harrison clicked through more documents. "Here's you, Gregory, transferring $2 million to a shell company in the Cayman Islands. Here's you, David, using foundation money to purchase a villa in Monaco. And here's you, Robert, paying off your gambling debts with money meant for a children's hospital in Brooklyn." Each accusation hit like a hammer. Amara watched through the glass as their faces changed. Shock, fear, then anger. "You can't prove any of this," Robert said. "Actually," Harrison said, "I can. I have 18 months of documentation, bank records, emails, recorded phone conversations. I even have video footage of David bragging about the Monaco villa to his friends, specifically mentioning that he bought it with foundation money." That's when Robert lunged across the table. "You senile old bastard," he shouted. "You were supposed to die. We waited 18 months for you to die." Harrison didn't flinch. "But I didn't die," he said quietly, "because I was never sick in the first place, and that's when I gave you the rope to hang yourselves with." Charles stepped forward, his voice cold. "Security is already here," he said. "The police are on their way. Everything you've stolen will be returned to the foundations, and all three of you will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law." "You can't do this," David said desperately. We're family. You're thieves, Charles said. You stole from people who had nothing, from sick children, from families who needed housing. You're not family. You're criminals. That's when Harrison looked at Amara through the glass and nodded. She walked in carrying the briefcase, set it on the table, opened it to reveal copies of every document, every piece of evidence. Mrs. Whitmore has been instrumental in organizing this evidence, Harrison said. My wife, the woman you all dismissed as a gold digger, the foster kid who married a dying old man for money. She's been working with me this entire time. Robert looked at Amara with pure hatred. You, he spat. You were part of this from the moment I figured out your husband was faking, Amara said calmly. And unlike you, I actually care about the people those foundations are supposed to help. Because I was one of those people. I grew up in the system you were stealing from. So yes, I was part of this, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Security entered the room. 3 officers in uniform. Robert Whitmore, David Whitmore, Gregory Chen, the lead officer said. You're under arrest for embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy to commit theft. They stood there and watched as they were handcuffed. David was crying. Gregory was shouting about lawyers. But Robert just stared at Harrison with cold fury. You'll regret this, Robert said. I already regret it, Harrison replied quietly. I regret trusting you. I regret believing you cared about our family's legacy. But most of all, I regret not stopping you sooner. They were led out. The boardroom fell silent. Charles sank into a chair, his head in his hands. I just watched my uncle get arrested, he said. My cousin, my father's best friend. I know, Harrison said gently, sitting beside him. And I'm sorry you had to see it, but they made their choices. We're just making sure they face the consequences. What happens to the foundations now? Charles asked. They continue, Harrison said. Stronger than ever. Every dollar will be returned. Every project will move forward, and Amara will oversee it all. Charles looked at Amara. You? He asked. Your father is naming me as primary trustee, Amara said. I'll manage the distributions. Make sure the money goes where it's supposed to go. Make sure families like mine actually get the help they need. Charles studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. You'll be good at it, he said. You understand what it's like to need help, to be dismissed, to fight for survival. Yeah, Amara said. I do. And I'll make sure no one else has to fight as hard as I did. That night, back at the estate, Harrison and Amara sat in his study. You did well today, he said. So did you, she replied. For a man who's supposed to be dying, you're remarkably spry. He laughed. It was the first time she'd heard him laugh. A real, genuine laugh. I suppose I can drop the act now, he said. The board knows. The family knows. The charade is over. What will you do now? Amara asked. Live, he said simply. Actually live. I've spent 18 months pretending to be dying. I think I'd like to experience being alive again. He looked at her. And you? What will you do? Amara thought about it. The Johnson family was gone from her life. She had $8 million in property. She had control of one of the largest charitable foundations in New York. She had a future she'd never dared to imagine. I think, she said slowly, I'll help people. Kids in foster care who need advocates, families who need housing, people who've been dismissed and underestimated their entire lives. I'll show them that someone cares, that someone is fighting for them. Harrison smiled. That's exactly what I hoped you'd say, he said. 3 months later, Amara stood in front of a newly renovated apartment complex in the Bronx. The building had been abandoned for years. Now it housed 50 families, all former foster youth, all given a chance at stability they'd never had before. This is the first of many, she told the reporters gathered there. The Whitmore Foundation is committed to providing housing, education, and support for young people aging out of the foster system. Because I was one of those young people, and I know what a difference it makes when someone actually cares. The cameras flashed, the questions came rapid fire, but she answered them all calmly, confidently. This was her purpose now. Her chance to take everything she'd survived and use it to help others survive too. After the press conference, Amara got a text from an unknown number. She opened it. Saw you on the news. Looks like you landed on your feet. Congratulations. It was from Nia. Amara stared at that message for a long moment. Then she blocked the number. She didn't need Nia's congratulations. She didn't need her validation. She didn't need anything from the family that had tried to destroy her, because she'd won. Not by beating them at their game, but by refusing to play anymore. By building something bigger than their petty cruelty. By turning her pain into purpose. 6 months after that, Amara got another message, this one from Terrence. Amara, I've been following your work. I wanted to apologize. What I did was unforgivable. I was desperate and I made terrible choices. You deserved better. I hope someday you can forgive me. She read it twice. Then she replied, I do forgive you, Terrence, not because you deserve it, but because holding on to anger was destroying me. I've learned that the best revenge isn't hurting the people who hurt you. It's becoming so successful, so fulfilled, so genuinely happy that they become irrelevant. I hope you find your own path to happiness. But that path doesn't include me. Goodbye. She sent it and felt something lift off her shoulders, the weight she'd been carrying since that family meeting, since watching him choose Nia, since realizing he'd been a lie the entire time. It was gone. She was free. 1 year after the wedding, Harrison threw a party, a real celebration, not the sad small ceremony they'd had in the conservatory. He invited everyone, foundation staff, board members, families they'd helped, and Amara. She wore a dress she'd bought herself, red silk, elegant but not too formal. She felt beautiful, not because of the dress, but because of who she'd become. The scared foster kid who'd walked into the Johnson mansion a year and a half ago was gone. In her place was someone who knew her worth, someone who'd survived betrayal and come out stronger, someone who was changing lives. Harrison found her on the balcony overlooking the ocean. Beautiful night, he said. It is, she agreed. He stood beside her, looking out at the waves. You know, when Charles first suggested this arrangement, I thought it was absurd, he admitted. Marrying a complete stranger just to maintain a cover story? But you, he turned to look at her. You were the best thing that could have happened. You didn't just help me expose my family's crimes, you reminded me why I started those foundations in the first place. Amara felt tears prick her eyes. You gave me a purpose, she said. A reason to keep going when I thought I had nothing left. We saved each other, Harrison said simply. That's what family does. Family. The word hit differently now. Not biology, not obligation, but choice. Harrison had chosen her, Charles had chosen her, she'd chosen them back. And they'd built something real. 2 years after the wedding, Amara got a call from a social worker. Miss Whitmore, she said, I'm calling about a young girl named Sophie. She's 15, aging out of her current foster placement, and she has nowhere to go. Your foundation was recommended as a resource. Can you help? Amara smiled. Yes, she said. I can help. Give me her information. I'll make sure she has a place to stay, support, everything she needs. After she hung up, Amara thought about her own 15th year, moving from house to house, never belonging anywhere, wondering if anyone would ever care. Now she was the person who cared. She was the one making sure kids like Sophie didn't have to wonder. Harrison's health, his real health, started declining 2.5 years after their wedding. Not dementia, just age. 89 years old and finally slowing down. Amara sat with him in the study one evening, both of them working on foundation reports. Amara, he said suddenly. Thank you. For what? She asked. For being exactly who you are, he said. For taking this bizarre situation and turning it into something beautiful. For caring about people the way I always hoped someone would. She reached over and took his hand. The same hand she'd held on their wedding day. The same hand that had gripped hers and whispered, play along. Thank you, she said, for giving me a chance when no one else would. Harrison passed away peacefully 3 years after their wedding, surrounded by family. Charles was there. Amara was there. Dr. Peterson was there. He died knowing his foundations were secure, knowing his legacy would continue, knowing he'd made a difference. At his funeral, hundreds of people came. Families he'd housed, patients from hospitals he'd funded, former employees who'd loved working for him, and Amara, his widow, his partner in the greatest con he'd ever pulled, the woman who'd helped him fake dementia to save everything he'd built. Charles gave the eulogy. My father, he said, was the most brilliant man I've ever known, not just because of his business success, but because he understood what mattered: people, dignity, giving others the chances he'd been given. And in his final years, he found the perfect partner to continue that work. Amara, he looked directly at her. My father chose well when he chose you. After the funeral, people approached Amara with condolences. I'm so sorry for your loss. He was such a good man. You must miss him terribly. She did miss him, but not in the way they thought. She missed their late-night strategy sessions. She missed his dry humor. She missed the way he'd look at her when she suggested a new initiative and say, "That's exactly right." He wasn't her husband in any traditional sense, but he was family. And losing him hurt. The reading of the will happened a week later. Charles and Amara sat in the lawyer's office. Harrison had been clear in his instructions. To my son Charles, the lawyer read, I leave the Whitmore estate and all personal property. You've been a good son, a better man than I deserved. Continue building, continue growing, continue being compassionate even when the world tells you it's weakness. To my wife Amara, I leave control of the Whitmore Foundation and all associated charitable trusts. You understand the mission better than anyone. You've lived the struggles our foundation aims to address. Use this power wisely. Help people the way I wish I could have helped you 24 years ago. And remember, family isn't who you're born to. It's who chooses to stand beside you. Amara wiped tears from her eyes. Charles reached over and squeezed her hand. He really loved you, Charles said. Like a daughter. I know, Amara whispered. I loved him too. 5 years after that wedding in the conservatory, Amara stood in front of a crowd of 200 people. Former foster youth who'd gone through their programs, graduated college, started careers, built lives. This is what the Whitmore Foundation is all about, she told them. Second chances, third chances, as many chances as it takes. Because I needed those chances too. I needed people to believe in me when I didn't believe in myself. Now I'm paying it forward. And I'm asking you to do the same. After the speech, a young woman approached her. Miss Whitmore, she said nervously, I just wanted to thank you. I was in one of your first housing programs 5 years ago. I was homeless, addicted, didn't think I had a future. Your program saved my life. I'm 2 years sober now. I have a job. I have an apartment. I have hope. She started crying. Thank you for not giving up on people like me. Amara hugged her tight. I didn't give up on you, she said, because I know what it's like to be dismissed, to be told you're not worth saving. But you are worth it. You always were. That night, Amara drove back to the Whitmore estate. It was hers now. Charles had his own place in Manhattan, but he visited often. They'd become real family, not through blood, not through obligation, but through choice. She walked through the conservatory where she'd gotten married 5 years ago, stood in the exact spot where Harrison had opened his eyes and changed her life. Play along, he'd whispered. They're watching. He'd been right. They were watching. The Johnson family. Marcus, Diana, Nia, Jamal. They'd been watching her fail, watching her struggle, watching her play their games and lose over and over again, but she'd stopped playing their games. She'd started playing her own, and she'd won. Not by destroying them, not by getting revenge, but by building something so big, so meaningful, so genuinely good that their cruelty became irrelevant. That's the secret they never understood. The best revenge isn't hurting the people who hurt you. It's becoming so successful that they can't hurt you anymore. It's building a life so full of purpose that their opinions don't matter. It's choosing yourself when everyone else chose against you. Amara pulled out her phone and looked at her contacts. She still had their numbers. Marcus, Diana, Nia. She could call them, tell them about her success, rub it in their faces, show them exactly what they'd thrown away. But she didn't, because she didn't need their validation anymore. She didn't need them to see her. She didn't need them at all. Instead, she called Charles. "Hey," she said when he answered. "Want to grab dinner tomorrow? We need to discuss the new housing initiative in Queens." "I'd love to," Charles said. "And Amara? Dad would be proud of you." She smiled. "I'm proud of me too," she said. And that was the truth. 6 years after signing that contract with Naya, after losing 9 rounds of her cruel game, after being forced to marry an 87-year-old man with fake dementia, she'd won, not the way she'd expected, not by beating them at their game, but by refusing to let their cruelty define her, by turning pain into purpose, by choosing family instead of accepting biology. The Whitmore Foundation now operates in 12 states. They've housed over 5,000 former foster youth, provided scholarships to 3,000 students, funded medical care for tens of thousands of families. And every single person they help, Amara sees herself. That scared kid who didn't know if anyone would ever choose her, who thought family meant biology and blood, who believed she had to earn love through suffering. She was wrong about all of it. Family is choice. Love is given freely or it's not love at all. And the only person's approval you need is your own. That's what Harrison taught her. That's what this whole insane journey taught her. So to everyone watching this, everyone who's been betrayed by family, dismissed by people who should have protected you, told you weren't good enough, here's what you need to hear. You are enough. You always were. The people who couldn't see your worth, that's their failure, not yours. And the best revenge, the sweetest victory, is building a life so beautiful that their opinions become background noise. Amara married an 87-year-old billionaire to escape her family. Then his eyes opened when she said, "I do," and he gave her something they never could. A purpose, a family, a future. Not because he saved her, but because he saw her, and he gave her the tools to save herself. That's the real story. Not the wedding, not the fake dementia, not the conspiracy or the arrests. The real story is about a girl who refused to stay broken, who took her pain and turned it into power, who chose herself when everyone else chose against her, and who built a legacy that will outlive everyone who tried to destroy her. 5 years ago, Nia told Amara she was just a foster kid playing dress-up, that she didn't belong in their world. She was right. Amara didn't belong in their world because she was meant for something bigger, something better, something real. She built her own world, and it's beautiful. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt dismissed or betrayed or told you weren't enough, leave a comment. Tell me your story, because you're not alone, and your story isn't over. Sometimes the best chapter comes after the worst betrayal. Sometimes the family you choose is stronger than the family you're born into. And sometimes marrying a fake dying billionaire is exactly what you need to find your purpose. Subscribe if you want more stories about survival, revenge, and building something beautiful from the ashes. Because Amara's story? It's just the beginning. There are thousands more stories like hers out there. And I'm going to tell every single one. This is the Whitmore legacy. This is what happens when you refuse to let cruelty win. This is proof that the foster kid they dismissed, the girl they tried to destroy, can build an empire of compassion that changes thousands of lives. That's her story. That's how she went from a basement room in Greenwich to running one of the largest charitable foundations in New York. From being nobody's daughter to being everyone's advocate. From having nothing to having everything that actually matters. And it all started with a wedding to a man who whispered play along. So she did. And she played the game better than anyone could have imagined. Not by their rules, but by hers.